So I'd like to welcome everyone to this very special announcement. My name's Tom Hiles. I'm Vice Chancellor for University Advancement, and it's a very good day. It's Friday, it's beautiful, and just telling William that how appreciative we are that he and Joanne allowed us to do this publicly today. So my job is just to introduce the dais and then to let the Chancellor make his remarks, and then William will speak here in a moment. So we do have also Joanne is here with us today, William and Joanne Trogdon, and William will be speaking on behalf of both of them. I did want to say that this announcement is particularly important in light of our capital campaign that we will announce next October. I know both William and other donors are sometimes hesitant to go public with their support, but he is a true role model. They are true role models, and it really does help encourage others to support the university in general and the libraries in particular. So we're very grateful for that. So with no further ado, let me call on Chancellor R. Bowen Lofton for our announcement today.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Thank you all for being here today. Let me just, though, begin by just a moment of solemnity. This is a Remembrance Day for 9/11, and let's take just a moment of silence to recognize that. Thank you. But to move from that moment of solemn remembrance of a tragedy in the past, let's go to the future now. The future is here to celebrate, in my opinion. And we're so pleased to be able to do this today with the Trogdons, but also with all of you, part of the Mizzou family. I'm old enough to remember the library of the past. The library of the past was a haven for me because it was one of the few buildings on campus air-conditioned in Texas, where I lived at the time, and it was a place to escape the unbearable heat outside some days, and a place to collect my thoughts, to do research, to study, and that has, over time, not been lost. Even though I and many of you will access some of the things the library provides from elsewhere, we still want to be here. We still want to be here. That's an important thing to remember. The library still carries a cachet of time and place. A time to be alone or with a small group, and a time also to do research, to reflect, to write, to think. It's also a place that brings us together. Note our location. This is a central location for our campus. I pass by it every day several times, and I go into this building oftentimes several times a day, as do thousands of others. So we're here today to celebrate this library and also the generosity of two very special people, and celebrating as well their contribution not just to the library but to our students in the School of Health Professions. Let me just talk a moment about the donors. William Trogdon has no less than 5 degrees from MU. Think about that, 5 degrees. Of course, a BJ from our world-famous School of Journalism. I just left the MPA meeting, by the way, to be over here, where we're celebrating the J School as well today. And of course, Will taught there for a time, as well as a BA, MA, and PhD, all in English, and of course, the capstone and honorary doctorate from the institution as well. Joanne is an attorney, historian, and author. Her book, The Unknown Travels and Dubious Pursuit of William Clark, we published this very month by the University of Missouri Press. Think about that. We're here today to celebrate Will and Jan's love of books, of reading, of researching, of writing, and of giving back. We're here also to honor Will's father, Ralph Grayston Trogdon, who gave Will his love of all things to do with reading, and who also showed him the importance of caring for others. So it gives me extraordinary joy today to announce that Will and Jan have made an estate pledge of $1.5 million. This gift will support a rare books and special collections endowment for the MU libraries. Preserving rare books, preserving things that are in fact very specialized and very unique is something we find incredibly important for this library and all libraries at major institutions around the country. But this estate pledge is only the latest in a long series of gifts by the Trogdons. This now brings the William Trogdon Library's endowment to a total of $3.5 million. Think about that. And I see a smiling Dean Chris Haglin in front of me here. Additionally, the Trogdons have given a cash gift this year of $100,000 to support scholarships in our School of Health Professions. Thank you for that as well. That special gift will create the Ralph Grayston Trogdon Scholarship, honoring Will's father and supporting health profession students with physical disabilities who aspire to become healthcare practitioners. To quote from our media release, the MU libraries have a world-class collection of rare books, and the Trogdons have demonstrated their passion for books and libraries with a perpetual endowment that will enrich generations of MU students and scholars to come. What's more, their other gift provides a top-tier education for our students, keeping our cost affordable for those students, which is a very high priority for our institution. The Trogdons' generous gift will help us further our cause for accessibility here at MU as well. Here to explain the motivation behind this extraordinary philanthropy is Will Trogdon.
Thanks, Chancellor. Thank you. Thank you. Stop. Am I blushing yet? I want to say some thanks so I don't forget. I may get excited up here and go off who knows where, so I'll get this in while I have my wits about me. But I want to thank the Chancellor and Tom Hiles and Jim Cogswell, the Director of the Library, and Dean Hagland, and a number of you in there. I see Richard Wallace back there, who has been such a great supporter for the library, and all of you in various ways, I'm sure, are behind what we're trying to do here to make this one of the great university libraries in the country. Oh, I need to thank also the people who put the display together, ladies, women up in special collections. Alla, is Alla here? There she is, back there, Alla. And Shannon also in special collections. Is Shannon here? Yeah. Oh, there she is back there, yeah. Thank you very much for your good work. Oh, and Ann Riley. There she is. There, Ann. Okay. All right. Yes. Thank you. And in a different context, I want to thank my great friend Ed Ayler. Ed, would you stand up there? Ed's front. Some of you may know him as a retired surgeon. Got his degree from the University of Missouri and worked in University Hospital for a while, private practice. In fact, I met Ed when I went in. He was an ENT, otolaryngologist. Did I say it right, Ed? Did that come out? Okay. Went in for an ear thing, and we got to know each other. And you can see a copy of Ed's book, Blue Highways Revisited, over there in the corner of the display, as well as several of his photographs. And he's, as you can see, he's a very talented man. It's not often you get somebody coming out of medicine and showing artistic talent, but it does happen sometimes. Last week, Nathan Hurst, who works for the university, and how should I describe your job, Nat? All right. He asked me, first question, why do I love books? I had no answer. It was like asking me, why do I like chocolate? It goes beyond reason. It goes beyond explanation. But if he had asked, I thought, now that I've had a week to think about it, that's why I'm a writer, not a public speaker. I can go home and think and say, oh, this is better. I just finished a novel. It's in New York right now, making the rounds. And last night, Jan said something to me. I said, oh, that's better than what I have. So even though it's not published yet, it's out of my hands, but I'm still adding to it. The question I wish you'd ask me, so I'll ask it of myself if I may, I didn't study journalism for nothing, is how is it that I found my way into the realm of books? I first stepped into this colonnade, we didn't call it that back in those days, in 1957, and I had no idea as an 18-year-old freshman that I would ever be here talking to people about books in the library, but it makes sense because this was where my life was then. Well, a few other places. Andy's Corners, you may have heard stories about Andy's Corners and the stables. Yes, they were there too. But the way that I found my way in, I think, is this. I want to make a little reading for you. Groans are permitted. What you need to know about this text I'm going to read is that there are two key characters in the part I'm going to read, the section I'm going to read. One is a Scottish terrier called Mac, and the other is a striped cat of some strange unknown lineage called Muff. I hope you can withstand the tension in this reading. Mac sees Muff. Muff sees Mac. See Mac run. See Muff run. Nancy said, see Mac, see Mac. Come Mac, Muff. Bob said, come Mac, come. Nancy said, see Muff, come Muff, come Muff. Bob said, see Mac, run Mac, run. That goes on for another 46 pages. But that's it. I learned to read in September 1944. It's appropriate we're here in September 1944. The war in Europe was beginning to come to an end. I say the war because for those of us of a certain age, that is the war. I can't say it in the classroom anymore because they say which war. The sad state, of course, that we have to give wars numbers now. We stopped giving them numbers after 2 because we realized this number is going to get too big. It's like the Super Bowl. How long can we handle those Roman numerals? But I remember that September afternoon, lying across the bed, looking out into the backyard, my father there with me. He was an attorney, and he decided I needed to know how to read before I went off to school. I was getting ready to go off to kindergarten. So he opened this book, and here on page, well, it's page 7, it's the first real page of the story, I started reading those words, and there's so many things in life I try to do that I'm not very good at. We won't go into those because the list would be too long. But I must say on this, it was as if I already knew how to read. It just came very easily. Now, I made up for that when I got into arithmetic because that was a disaster for me, still is. In fact, some of the math that I'm going to mention here in just a moment, I had to check with Jan last night to make sure I was saying it in the right way. And those of you who are good in math, if I have it wrong, hold your hand up and tell me and I'll get it straight. My point here is that from those simple words, there are only, make sure I get this right, what I read you there, essentially 4 sentences, 12 words, and on the first 2 pages, only 4 of those words are different words. So from the simplest of beginnings, I end up with what you see over in that case, those books. And I don't know how that happens. I don't believe in miracles. I'm an empiricist. But this seems to me to be getting very close to a miracle. In fact, whenever I was teaching journalism or English, I used to open up the first day of class talking about the strange, miraculous thing that it is to speak and for somebody to comprehend that. So by vibrating a column of air in our throat and sending it out, somebody picks that up. And so I can put things into your head just like that, whether you want them or not, but they'll be there. Eiffel Tower. You see it. I could do other things that are less pleasant. I won't do it. Vomit. But, couldn't resist. Well, that's a very strange thing. And as you know, we don't know any other species on this planet with that capacity. It's our strength and it's our weakness, because so many times what comes out of that column of air are ugly things. I think that the reason I want to mention Mac and Muff is that what is going on in this book, I don't know whether they still print this or not. It came out in 40 and reprinted in 44. By the way, it's 48 pages, it's about 500 words, and it took 4 writers to write this book. So clearly you can see that I didn't learn everything because I'm doing something wrong. It was one man taking forever to write those books over here. That's 125 words per writer. That sounds like pretty easy living to me. At any rate, what I want to say here is that the process that's going on in this book is, if you get down to basics, it seems to me the same thing that's going on in this library. We have some 3 million books in here. And I won't say each one, but let me say that 98% of them are doing the same thing, and that is attempting to open up for somebody a new world, a new realm. And just as my father, by teaching me what those dark letters of ink on paper meant, he changed my life forever. Without Mac and Muff, I wouldn't be standing here. And the people who have read those books would have never seen those books. It's the same for all of us in some way. Books open worlds, they open minds. I think there's no greater thing, and for that reason, there's no greater institution on this great campus than where we're sitting right now, and the extension libraries. My tuition at Mizzou in my first year in 1957 was, those of you who are paying tuition now, grab your seats, it was $79. Second semester, $79. And if my math is holding up there, that's $158 for a year of tuition. The tuition did go up a bit over time, but by the time that I graduated with my bachelor's degree in English in 1961, I'd paid just under $1,000 to the university for tuition, $1,000. It seemed at the time that was fair and just, but as I got older and the economy changed, and finally at age 42, when my first book came out, I thought, I don't know, I'm not sure that was a fair shake for the university. It was more than a good deal. It was really robbery. I owed something. The first check that Blue Highways, my first book, pulled in was $15,000, which, given that I'd been working on the loading dock of the Columbia Tribune to pay for the 4 years that I was writing Blue Highways and making $1,000 a year, 15 grand seemed like pretty good until my wife, not Jan, but another person, said, well, that's not even what a kindergarten teacher makes in the first month or so. So that's one reason she's not here tonight, with thinking like that. Well, the first check for Blue Highways was 15 grand, but the next 4 were, now here comes some of my math, if I'm saying this right, were larger by a factor of 50, not 15, 50. And there's been a check twice a year ever since then, and I trust and hope that when I drop off the twig, that those checks will continue to come, and they're going to come to the university, which will pass at least most of it on, I hope, Chancellor, to Ellis Library. You guys can have a little bit, but this is where it should be. You have that on record. Play that back if. So what I'm trying to do here, really, Jana Nile, she's a graduate of the University of Arizona and UMSL. I don't like to say UMSL. WashU and UMSL. Who made up the names for these schools in St. Louis? I'm trying to atone for ripping off the university. $1,000 for a bachelor's degree, that's not right. So I hope this will help. But still, no matter what I would give, I can never give enough to repay what this university has allowed me to do. And if I kept talking here, I could even start choking up a bit. It means so much to me. And in a similar way, I'm unable to thank my father for teaching me to read. I know there are plenty of fathers out there now who never do that with their daughters or their sons. And many of you have. I mean, you're here in the library, you're educated people, but too many people miss that. So for that reason, for my father, I've created a scholarship for the School of Health Professions. And let me tell you one 60-second story here about that. When I was finishing up my degree in journalism at age 38, it was December, and I came out of the J School, and I was walking up 9th Street, and just about where the Osama's, it's still called Osama's, the coffee shop there? It was a barber shop then. Right about there, not far from the journalism school, there was a fellow. He was a large man. I suppose he was 23, 24, in a wheelchair, an electric chair, and something had gone haywire, I guess, with the battery, and he was stalled on 9th Street. So, it was near midnight. That's the way journalism works. Near midnight, nobody was around, so I'll push you. Well, I've never pushed a large man in an electric wheelchair before, so I went up 9th Street like that. And we got up here to Conley, and fortunately, he saw somebody in a car whom he knew, so I was off the hook. But I never forgot that, and it dawned on me then that, here's the cliche for you, life is not fair. I didn't get stuck on 9th Street, he got stuck. And I thought, this was before Blue Highways now, and I thought if I ever have the wherewithal to try to help people who could use a push up 9th Street, I want to do that. So that's the reason that Jan and I have created the scholarship to honor my father. And we hope to move some people through the School of Health Professions with disabilities, physical disabilities. If you don't put physical in there, then somebody like me might qualify for the scholarship. So I want to make sure it was not that. I guess my greatest hope I'm winding down here. My greatest hope for this announcement today is to encourage other people to lend a hand to the university, those of you who are proud to wear the symbol. Think about what you can do. And I want to interrupt this with a little, potentially, what's the word I want here? Not improper. This could be a touch-and-go subject, but let me speak my heart, if you will. It's a two-part story. I was in Japan in 1967 visiting a small Japanese village where a student of mine, a young woman at Stevens, lived. And we were she was showing me her little village. We were walking down it was like an alley, cinders. And a boy, probably about 2 years old, came darting out from a house. I call it a house. Came darting out, running toward us to greet us, and took a spill on these cinders. And he came up with bloody knees. He didn't quite come up, though. He was still down there, and after his shock passed, then he started crying. And my student, who was about 21 at the time, she went over to him and leaned down to pick him up. And then we know the father, who was sitting there watching all this, called out, I have this in translation, called out, "Don't touch him." She drew back. The father said, "You'll make him weak." And so we stepped back, and the little kid looked around, saw nobody was picking him up, and he got up and walked off, stopped crying. Well, a few years before my father died, I mentioned he was an attorney. He would occasionally revise his last will and testament. This was the final version. He said to me when I was visiting him in Kansas City one day, he said, "I want to say this to your face. I have finished this revision of the last will and testament, and I want you to know that you and your brother are being remembered." Thank you. He said, "But I also want you to understand this. I'm not going to spoil you." "What do you mean?" He said, "I don't want to make you weak." And sometimes I think that people who do not I think we can give too much to our children if we have too much, when there's plenty that can go to, in this instance, let's see, Ellis Library. One man's opinion. We all know now that expressions of gratitude are really good for the human heart. They do the heart good. They do our health good, to say thanks, to express gratitude. And I want to close with saying to all of you, because so many of you care about this library, otherwise why would you be here? I want to thank you for what you have done, and I hope continuing what you will do for Ellis or for other phases of our great beloved University of Missouri. Thanks. Thank you.
So we will not be doing questions from the media up here, but we will be available afterwards for some questions. And I just want to thank Will and Joanne one more time for their incredible generosity. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.